to make sure that the Ukrainians had in hand what they needed to repel that aggression. We did a drawdown Labor Day before the war started, the aggression started. We did another one Christmas. We did it quietly, so as not to give the Russians some excuse, but we did it. And as a result, the Stingers, the Javelins that they had in hand that allowed them to repel the attack against Kyiv and that whole area was very successful. What we've done every single step along the way is to try to adjust to where the war was, where the aggression was, to give the Ukrainians what they need to take back, yes, to take back the land that's been seized from them. But the other critical element that the Secretary of Defense talks about on a regular basis is the weapon systems are critical, but as critical, the training, because they don't know how to use them, doesn't do you a lot of good to give them the best system in the world. The maintenance, if the thing's going to fall apart in a week because they can't maintain it, doesn't do you a lot of good. And of course, the tactics for bringing all of these different systems together, all of that is something that the Secretary, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs have been deeply focused on. And that's how you have, I think, a winning strategy. And yes, the Ukrainians need to be able to get back the land that's been seized from them.
As Secretary of State, talking about an endgame winning strategy with the Ukrainians to the American people, I think would be helpful in terms of the support, for, as well as our allies, in terms of the support for what we're doing over there. I think that's important, and I think you need to really be out there explaining that to the American people as part of that support effort.
Appreciate that.
I was recently in both South Korea and Taiwan. One of the things that I'm hearing in both cases, but certainly from Taiwan, is they've ordered about $19.5 billion worth of military hardware, very, very advanced hardware. Back to the porcupine strategy, they need that sooner than later. We also have, the situation in Ukraine. We also have our own domestic needs. How do we get the military industrial complex to be able to produce these weapons, particularly the ones we need in these key situations sooner? How do we help them get that done, Secretary Austin?
The high-end capabilities, the hardware that you're talking about, some of that's aircraft, and we came in the door.
F-16s in the case of Taiwan, ordered, paid for, agreed to.
Right, we leaned into that right away. I put a group of senior people together to look at where the bumps in the road were, where the friction was, and so we did that, and we continually try to eliminate all the friction points that we possibly can. This is there are multiple elements that go into this equation, Senator, as you well know, and we've worked with state to see what we can do to compress timelines. But coming out of 2 years of COVID, there were parts of the industry that were challenged, and some of the, because of that, some things are going to take a bit longer. In terms of weapon systems, we continue to engage industry leadership. I talk to CEOs. My deputy talks to CEOs to not only work with them to expand their capacity or capability, but also to begin to shrink the amount of time that's necessary to produce a particular product. And in some cases, I think we've been very successful. Some things are sophisticated to the point where we're not quite there yet, but we'll continue to work at this. So, PGMs, for example, precision-guided munitions. Takes a long time typically to make one. I think there are things that we can do as we look at how we produce those to begin to shorten that process, those processes as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you for your testimony and for your service. Secretary Austin, thank you for being one of a long line of secretaries who recognizes that in addition to getting a robust defense budget to do the work that you and your team at the Defense Department do, we need to adequately fund other elements of our national security, like the State Department, diplomacy and development, like the Secretary of Commerce and her team. And I'm fairly satisfied that at the end of the day here, we'll have a budget that meets the needs of the Defense Department. But I'm really worried about what we're seeing coming out of the House of Representatives right now in terms of its impact on other critical elements of our national security budget. So I want to ask a couple of questions, starting with Secretary Raimondo, and I also want to say we're sorry about the loss of your mom. I know she was proud of the work you're doing, and let me ask you about that. because President Biden laid out a really important vision about the need to invest in innovation and to invest in rejuvenating our manufacturing base. The CHIPS and Science Act was a big part of that, as you said. We've done a big piece of funding on the CHIPS part, but we better follow through on the science part. That's the AI, that's the quantum computing, that's other critical elements of technology where China has said that they intend to try to dominate by the year 2025 and beyond. I know that if we do what we need to do in this country, we will continue to have our competitive edge, but not if we don't. So that's one element. The other element, and you've spoken to this in your testimony, is we want to make sure that as we develop very advanced technologies, including in semiconductors and the equipment to manufacture semiconductors, we don't want it to fall in the hands of the PRC military. And that's why we've worked with our allies and partners, you and Secretary Blinken and others, have worked with our partners to make sure that we get an agreement to prevent that from happening. The agency in government that really focuses on implementing that is the BIS, right? The Bureau of Information and Security. And could you just describe in a little more detail what will happen if we go back to 2022 funding levels for this department? It seems to be an entity that fights way above its weight, and it's essential in this effort. Can you speak to the impact on keeping our technologies out of the hands of China's military and the importance in terms of the impact on imposing pain on Russia's economy and slowing down Putin's war machine?
Yes, thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, and thank you for your sympathy. My family and I appreciate that. So first, let me say that our competition with China increasingly revolves around technology. The United States of America, our innovation ecosystem, our entrepreneurship are the envy of the world. And we need to keep it that way. And that means investing in talent, investing in research and development, investing in NIST. I said earlier, NIST has $1 billion backlog in deferred maintenance. That's the crown jewels in the United States government as it relates to artificial intelligence, quantum, cyber, et cetera. At the same time, we're behind $1 billion. China is massively investing in their metrology institutes, their equivalent of NIST. So I strongly believe, as you say, that we have to lean into research and development and invest in science. CHIPS is an excellent beginning, but it isn't just CHIPS. It's biomanufacturing, it's critical minerals, it's other areas of advanced manufacturing, and we will not be able to compete. We lead China now in AI, we lead China now in semiconductors, and we have to continue to invest to maintain the lead. BIS, I appreciate you saying we punch above our weight. I happen to agree. There's only about 500 and some odd people that work in BIS, which is obviously quite small. If we were to go back to FY22 funding levels, we'd be down 125 slots. As a percent of what, of the 583 FTEs, that's crushing. Within days of, you mentioned Russia and Ukraine, within days of the invasion, the Commerce Department, working with the interagency, led a 36-country coalition to enact sweeping export controls that to this day reduces Russia's ability to continue their war. With respect to China, last year we did hundreds of end-use checks related to the PRC. I mean, in October, we put forth the most sweeping semiconductor export controls ever in our country's history. Just last month, we did a $300 million penalty on a company because they were violating export controls by selling hard disks to Huawei, and on and on and on. So we're out of time, so I will stop, but it is a very real risk to our national security to cut the funding of BIS, and I think Secretary Austin and my colleagues would agree.
Well, thank you, and I see time is out. I do want to say, Secretary Blinken, thank you for all your efforts, your testimony on the Indo-Pacific. I was going to ask you about the maritime security issue, which President Marcos, when he was here, emphasized, and in a trip I took with Senator Merkley to Vietnam and Indonesia, it was clear they want to protect their territorial waters, their EEZs, their fisheries, and their resources. And we're on the same page here, and if we cut that budget, we will not be able to meet our commitments. So I want to thank you and your team as well.
And thank you for your engagement and leadership on this. It's making a big difference, and one of the things that we're working very hard on with allies and partners in the region is to increase what we call their maritime domain awareness so that they know what's going on in the seas and waters around them, which are so vital to those countries. And that's part of our budget. We don't want to shortchange that either.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hyde-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I want to thank our distinguished panel today for the willingness to serve and the willingness to step up. We certainly appreciate that. You know, I'm from Mississippi, and we're just very proud that we have played such a significant role in contributing to our nation's defense capabilities. We, from shipbuilding to aerospace technology, we have a tremendous talented workforce in Mississippi. In Pascagoula, Mississippi, we have families that have worked in that shipyard for generations. And we just do this very well. And, you know, it does demonstrate our ability to have high-quality defense systems, and they do protect our servicemen and our servicewomen. But the rapid and unprecedented modernization of China's military and naval fleet specifically is of great concern, as many of the members here have demonstrated today and asked questions about. Secretary Austin, this question is going to be for you. The security of our national interest and those of our allies will rely on ensuring the United States maintains air dominance as part of its potential future conflict in the Pacific region. As part of our air dominance strategy, will you describe the department's efforts to modernize the KC-135 fleet and the KC-46 fleet? And will you also explain the role and significance of the Air National Guard in refueling missions in the Pacific region?
Thanks, Senator. First of all, our refueling capability is rivaled by none. That's a strategic advantage that I think gives us the reach, gives us the ability to project power in ways that no other country even comes close to. So as you've seen from our budget request, you know, some $60 billion to invest in aircraft and to modernize aircraft across the board. We want to make sure that we're able to go after the capabilities that we need, and also not have to carry capabilities that we don't need any longer, which will prevent us from modernizing the fleet. But we're going to continue to invest in platforms that help us maintain that edge that I just talked about. But our tanker fleet is truly amazing, and so the National Guard obviously punches above its weight class in every endeavor, and certainly they add significant value to this effort as well. So.
Thank you for that. And do you anticipate any roadblocks in ensuring that current Air National Guard refueling units, such as the 186 Air Refueling Wing in Mississippi, receive the KC-56 and that we have funded that process adequately?
Well, I would certainly, I'll work with the Secretary of the Air Force to visit his plans, his specific plans on that unit going forward, and we will get back to you with a detailed answer on the plans.
Okay, and I have another minute and a half left that I'm going to take advantage of before we end this very long day. But Secretary Austin, the rate at which the Biden administration and your department are requesting funding to modernize our naval service fleet is being significantly outpaced by China, as we well know. If this committee were to provide additional funding towards ship procurement, how would your department use it to address the growing threats from China in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, certainly, I truly believe that we have gone after those capabilities that help us conduct the strategy that we've laid out for ourselves. And I think, you know, comparing numbers is part of the equation, but not the whole equation. capability, having the right capabilities, the right mix of capabilities is the, you know, the major issue here. If you look at our Navy, we are the most combat credible Navy on the face of the planet. I'm going to work to keep it that way. And I think we're investing in the right things. 9 battle force ships we're asking for in this budget. And we're gonna go after the capabilities that industry can produce for us. We're also going to continue to invest in the infrastructure and the industrial base. So we've asked you for $4 billion to do that this year, 2.7 in SIOP, and then another $1.2 billion in the submarine industrial base. And I would end by saying, as you know, our underwater capability is matched by none on the planet. And we continue to invest in our submarines, a Columbia-class in this budget, 2 Virginia-class submarines, and I think that will help us maintain the edge.
Great. Thank you for that answer. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. That concludes our question and answer period. Senator Collins, would you like to make any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank our witnesses for answering our questions today. There will be additional questions, I'm sure, for the record, but thank you for your presence.
Thank you. And I want to thank Vice Chair Collins and all of my colleagues, really good turnout today, for such a thoughtful discussion. And I especially want to thank our witnesses, Secretary Austin, Secretary Blinken, Secretary Raimondo, for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. I look forward now to talking with all my colleagues to take what we have learned today and make sure that we do quickly mark up spending bills that make the investments that we need to compete with the Chinese government. Let's not parse words here. The PRC poses a serious and growing challenge, economically and in terms of our national security. So we have to be clear that tackling this challenge isn't just about how much we spend on our military, because if we choose to only plus up defense spending and undercut other critical programs across government, we are setting ourselves up to lose the 21st century to China. Building semiconductors here at home, for example, is a matter of urgent national security that requires investments in R&D, advanced manufacturing, reliable supply chains, and trade partnerships, and a skilled workforce that relies on things like childcare, higher education, and workforce investments and more. We need to make sure that we invest in America across the board. That means, yes, investing in defense priorities, but also our families and communities here at home, our diplomacy across the world, and our ability to compete globally. So I'll say it again, China doesn't operate on CRs. I hope it is plain to members on both sides of the aisle that the single strongest way we can send a message to the PRC saying that America is serious about winning the 21st century is to pass robust, bipartisan, and on-time full-year appropriations bills. And before I end, I do want to reiterate something that Secretary Austin spoke to this afternoon when he testified that he did not see conflict with the government of China as necessary or inevitable. It is our shared goal that we work together to have a productive relationship with China. So I appreciate all of our witnesses for their work to make that a reality. That will end our hearing today, and for any senators who do wish to ask additional questions, questions for the record will be due in 7 days on Tuesday, May 23rd at 5 p.m. The hearing record will also remain open until May 23rd for members who wish to submit additional materials for the record. Again, thank you so much to all of our witnesses today. Committee stands adjourned.